and welcome to the second episode of Youthfully Speaking. I'm Valerie Tan, and today I'm joined by Alphonse Lowe and Ronnie Yap, fellow members of the youth jury, and today we will be discussing the over-analysis of film. Is there such thing as over-analysis?
Yes, I do think I'm wrong, by the way. Yes, I do think that there is such a thing called over-analysis, because when we project our own interpretations too much on a film, which deviates from perhaps what the author intends to do, and we project too much of our own beliefs onto the film such that it evolves into something which it's not. And to me, that's called over-analysis, and to me, that's quite, I like to call it, pernicious for the film itself.
And I think I'd like to respectfully oppose that sort of view, because analysis is something that's innately human, right? But where is it that we draw the point that it becomes over-analysis? And in that sense, I think that viewers have this responsibility, especially in the film, in the medium of film, to sort of interpret things in a way that's significant to them. Because the film, yes, if it's in its most basic form, is a series of static images moving together. But film is not just about its medium, but more about the story it tells. And in a sense, everybody sees that story differently, and from that analysis, and analyzing that story, I think there's no such thing as over-analysis.
So it's almost like a perspective that everything is done for a reason.
No, I disagree. Sometimes so in the context of a film, I suppose there is always the intention for the author, be it the producer or the director or whoever, to entertain the audience.
Right.
That is always one intention. So the film itself manages to accomplish this goal, and it doesn't have a deeper point to it. Then my point is that it's over-analysis if we say that the author has a certain point to it, which he clearly did not mean to have.
But simultaneously, if you say that an author did not initially mean to have a certain point, yet a majority of people or a lot of viewers seem to be able to discern that point, to distill this message from the film, then there must somehow be factors in it, even unintentionally, that portrays this deeper meaning that people do see in it. And I think finding out this deeper meaning, whether or not that it was initially intended, is still analysis, and it is not to the point of over-analysis.
But what about when things are very obviously superficial, but you've been talking about something for so long that you give it meaning, like color of a curtain or the direction of someone's like minute movement, and you give that meaning? Is that not over-analysis?
I agree with your point that people have their own interpretations of certain things, but then there are, let's say, right or valid interpretations, of which there are many, and then there are also clearly wrong interpretations. For example, saying that a simple thing like and maybe an accessory reflects his ideological or philosophical beliefs when actually he just meant it. Like, for example, he just put it there because it was cheap. Then I would say that that's over-analysis.
Because at what point are we giving meaning to something that really we shouldn't be? And at what point are we reflecting upon ourselves and thinking this is how it's affecting us? And is there a clear line between those or not? Because for me, I think I tend to, when I watch things, you give things meaning because you have to. You can't watch something and just watch it for face value, because you will always, if it's done right, experience some kind of journey. It's very hard to really understand at which point I'm like, okay, this is what I interpret, and at what point I'm like, okay, this is what I want to project onto it and really want it to be, but really it isn't telling me that at all.
But I think in all sorts of analysis, whether it is film analysis, literary analysis, or even art critique, the thing is, if you're trying to say that this piece of work, this piece of literature, this piece of film has a message, you have to have the evidence to back it up. And if you do have evidence to back it up, there's sort of nothing to say that that's not a valid claim, because you do have something to support your point. Whether this view is the view that the original creator intended, that I don't think is a very important matter.
But surely you agree that there are wrong interpretations of certain things.
But in a sense, wrong interpretations are just interpretations that don't have the correct evidence to back it up, or even then, you're saying perhaps it's cherry-picked evidence, Like in a certain 10-minute sequence of a film, you say this supports this claim, but the other 120 minutes of the film don't support this claim. But that's what I'm saying is if you can find a way to support what you're saying, then that's not
Something to
over-analysis,
back it up.
that's just analysis.
But if the way that you use to support it is clearly wrong and does not meet certain logical standards, we do not agree that that's a wrong interpretation, and that wrong interpretations are considered over-analysis.
I wouldn't say incorrect interpretations are a form of over-analysis in the sense that incorrect representation or incorrect distillations of messages from film or from using incorrect evidence or whatever is just incorrect analysis in the sense that it's just wrong. You're not going over and beyond what is considered
Right.
analysis, you're just doing something wrongly.
What about when we discuss things for a long time? How does that change our perception of things? Like when we discuss our own analysis and share with everyone else, how does that change the way we see something?
I mean, your own opinion is bolstered by other people's opinion, whether they agree or agree or disagree with you. And that is like the basis of having a discussion itself. Because our own opinion is basically the opinion of one person, but if we bring them all together and then we can have we can produce a more informed, a more complex or nuanced opinion that we can all share together.
And I think this part about discussion about film especially is if you can contain this discussion and have this discussion for an extended period of time, if a piece of film or a work of art can have this sort of staying power that a lot of people have a lot to contribute to the conversation, then I think then that is something that needs analysis and something that can be so provocative that you have such a long-standing conversation with it. I don't think you can draw the line of over-analysis, because in that sense it's meant to be provocative if it stays in the conversation in the vernacular for so long.
What's then one of the more, from especially the short film program, what is one of the more interesting long discussions you've had that changed your perspective on something?
I think personally it would be the last film of Program 4, Luzon. I think a lot of what's represented in the film is very provocative. I think especially the end of the film, of which, if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, a huge, large fish engulfs two ships in that sense. It seems
Just the guy.
Yeah, just
not
one
the
gentleman.
ships, just one guy.
Right, just a guy. It engulfs the guy, and it seems so out of place. And yeah, us as part of the youth jury, we spoke to John, the senior correspondent at the Straits Times, and he hated it. He thought it was completely out of place, completely not with the flow of the film. But the more we discussed it, I think there is some merit to the ending, no matter how little there may be. I think that that choice, the artistic choice to include that large fish at the end, does have some sort of intention, and I think it is sort of up to the viewer to sort of see what that intention is.
Right. So, what about the intention versus the interpretation? I realize we've covered this, but to me, what's very interesting is especially when you can't know all the time what a filmmaker intends. How can you balance your intention? I mean, the filmmaker's intention and your interpretation of something within your analysis. When you cannot be explicitly told what was intended, and you're just trying to guess what was intended, are you doing it the right way? Are you interpreting it the right way? Or should interpretation be a personal thing?
Well, yes, interpretation should be a personal thing. And in fact, it always is a personal thing because our opinions are based on what we have experienced and what we have thought, what's going on in our brain. And the author's intention, well, let's say he says it out. Let's say he says for example, he says in a press release or whatever that this is what I meant, or this is what, or more commonly, what I didn't mean, then it does inform our own interpretation of the film, especially when he says that if it doesn't mean this certain thing, then we keep trying to insist that it is this certain thing, then there's a disjunct between the author's intent and what we interpret the film to be.
Could you just expand on that? I'm a little, what do you mean by...
So, the example that I use, it's in one of, who was it? John Woo's films. I forgot the name of it, actually. It was a film about two guys, one male cop and one robber, and some people interpreted it to be a film with homosexual content when he didn't say that it was. He didn't exactly say that this meaning was wrong. He just said that this meaning was not what I intended when I made the film. But people can have that opinion. So that's where I see the disjunct to be.
Right. Okay. So do you have any other examples? Because I think one of the best ways to understand this is to relate it back to our own experiences. Do you think that we can translate these over-analysis things, not just of film, but in our own experiences with other people? Like over-analyzing other people's behavior and how we relate with them.
That's definitely true to me. Well, sometimes things are done without any purpose. Sometimes when people look at you, like somebody across the room, he or she looks at you, and he just looked at you because people are curious and people just want to see what you are up to. And you look up and maybe you have the interpretation that he or she is romantically attracted to you.
Right.
When, yeah, that's obviously not correct.
I mean, going back to sort of the psychoanalysis of the venerable Sigmund Freud, everything that is done, no matter how surface level, no matter how pointless they seem to be, I think to some extent subconsciously reflect something that you're thinking about. Because I don't think there's such thing as a truly random action. I mean, every action sort of has a purpose, and I think to say that there are random actions that are completely pointless, I think would be naive. And I think if you apply that to film, yeah, there are certain elements that are done for more practical purpose, be it cost, be it time, be it weather or whatever. But there are simultaneously elements that are purposefully placed there. There are elements that are done so to aid the story, to abet the story, or even to a certain extent reflect something that the director wants to say. And yeah, I think that is sort of what we need to get at when we're analyzing a film.
So over-analysis, it tends to be just for the person themselves to decide whether they're doing it or not.
I think it could be said
it
so, yeah?
Right. Or do you think it's a more discussion-based thing?
I don't think that those two things are mutually exclusive. I think that you can overanalyze something as yourself, and when you're discussing as a group, you can still overanalyze anything, be it a film or an action by somebody, or even something as big as and real as government policy.
Right. So overanalysis can be both within ourselves and with other people.
And it is harmful, right? When we, let's say we interpret somebody's actions as being aggressive towards us, or we think that they are antagonizing us. Sometimes the fact is that they don't really care that much about you. Sometimes, it is a fact that I realize that people just don't care that much about you. And it's something that you learn with age. People have their own foot stuck up so far up their butt and they're drowning in their own problems that sometimes most of their actions don't really have any meaning.
So everyone's just in their own head.
Yes.
And we tend to just think everything's about us. Yeah, do you think that attitude within ourselves translates to when we watch a film?
I suppose so, in the sense that people who might be prone to overanalyzing themselves or other people's actions might be prone to overanalyzing a part of a film, but that I say that without any evidence. I can't really support that.
But to equate analysis in our daily lives, or be it mundane daily lives, and analysis to film, I don't think that's sort of a fair sort of comparison, because a film is very much a story that is put onto screen by a director, by a producer, by a screenwriter. There is a reason behind every film.
It's more like a product than...
Yeah, but in our real lives, in our actual day-to-day lives, you can't... I can see that you can overanalyze basic actions in everyday life, but I don't think that applies to film, because film has a purpose, and that we can't be said about some of the things that happen in our everyday life. Because film tells a story, and
But then what did you mean by there are no meaningless actions? Did you mean just in film or in general?
I think, as we trek philosophically into this avenue, there are no such thing as meaningless actions, even in real life to a certain extent. I mean, yes, we could go ahead and analyze every little action, and that I think would quantify as over-analysis. But yeah, to our personal lives, there are things that don't matter, but what doesn't matter to us doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't matter to other people.
Right.
And yes, film is just one story that's going on, one plot line, but real life there are millions and billions and trillions of plot lines that happening concurrently. And yeah, just because we don't know the other pieces of the puzzle doesn't mean something is pointless.
So I think that's a nice note to end on. So thank you for listening. It was really nice to talk to you guys about over-analysis and whether it's real or not. It's nice to hear different perspectives. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.